All right, recording is started, and this is the October 6th, 2022 Crossplane community meeting. I made the agenda outline last night since I was going to be busy or not at a computer all this morning. So I'm just kind of rolling in here and didn't flesh out any agenda from this morning. So anything that folks want to add is more than welcome, and especially contributing to that agenda. So let's go ahead and get started. I checked last night before this meeting here of any recent Crossplane patch releases, etc. We have not had any that I saw since the last community meeting, so nothing there to call out. But the big thing I think coming up here is the v1.10 release. So the scheduled release that we've been working to this whole time is for October 18th. So looking at the schedule here, we've entered into feature freeze now. Next week will be a code freeze, and we'll continue that sort of escalation there of pausing, taking big features, pausing to take only things like critical bug fixes, docs changes, etc. As we work our way towards October 18th. So kind of winding down this release here. So I wanted to check in with folks and see how things are going, if there's things that we wanted to get some attention on, if there are things that we needed some support with while we're trying to wind down this milestone. Maybe Bob, it might be a good place to start might be some of like the garbage collection, deletion type of work you've been doing. I don't think we were necessarily, planning on that being in 1.10 since there's a lot of hairy, scary things to figure out there. But do you want to give us a status on that and if there's parts of it that maybe fit into 1.10, or what's your take on all that?
Yeah. So I've kind of split it out into two pieces. Have been talking with Nick extensively. And so the foreground cascading deletion, I think, is going to be kind of separate by itself. I'm hoping to maybe get that into 1.10, but I'm not sure whether we will or not. It's really, it doesn't affect anything unless you specifically ask for foreground cascading deletion. So, in terms of impact, it shouldn't be a huge impact. The basic question there is, what do we do about claims? Because there's no owner reference between the claim and the composite, you cannot run foreground cascading deletion from the cube control delete command line on a claim. It's just never going to work. So we talked about adding an attribute to the composite that basically tells the claim, or maybe it was to the claim, I don't remember. Anyway, adding an attribute that basically tells the claim reconciler whether to use foreground cascading deletion when it calls delete on the composite. So that's kind of the one thing that's up in the air right now. The other half of that, the kind of the resource dependency cleanup, issues, we've kind of broken out of that. I've been doing some work on a POC with some ideas that Nick had with using emission webhooks and dependency resources to try to block deletion of certain objects while they have dependencies. The initial results were promising. I'm running into some problems now that I think are maybe less promising than we had hoped. So I need to have a discussion with Nick and see where he wants to go with that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where things are. Not as far along as I had hoped, but it's like you said, it's a big hairy mess, and we need to come up with the right solution to it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question about the complications or complexity of that problem. So yeah, that's a good update though, Bob. So thanks for sharing that, and then we'll continue making effort on that, and thanks making progress on that. And so thanks for your efforts on it, and then that's something that we can probably have more confidence of fitting into the 1.11 timeframe.
Yep.
Sweet. Okay, that's great. Let's see if there's other things that are kind of outstanding. So I know Nick and Max had been working on support patching from common data sources. The interfaces and the API went into Crossplane runtime, but the implementation within core Crossplane is still outstanding. So I was hoping to get that in for the 1.10 release as well, but it's still open right now, and we are now into feature freeze. So I don't think that's a great fit for trying to squeeze in at once we're in feature freeze. So if Nick or Max and folks involved in reviewing that have a different opinion, they're more than welcome to share that, and we can take that up asynchronously on that pull request. But I would not be counting on that in the 1.10 release, since it's hasn't quite landed yet. Dan, is there anything that you wanted to call attention to for 1.10, or as you're getting there?
Yeah, I linked it later on in the PRs that need attention, although I guess it doesn't really need attention for folks here, but I did want to mention the signature verification for packages. There's a open PR for that, and I left some feedback on it. And I think it's going to be easier for kind of like a Zoom conversation about it. So Jesse and I are going to sync on that tomorrow, obviously, as usual, and anyone else is welcome to join for that. It is not, I think Jesse and some other folks might demo it at KubeCon, but if it misses 1.10, it's not catastrophic by any means. And so that's kind of the update on that. Yeah.
And is there a way that folks reach out to you or be included in that synchronous conversation?
Yep, just ping me in Crossplane Slack.
Okay. And then so Dan, the feature 3048, issue 3048, which I believe is tracking the feature for enabling package signature validation. That looks like that wasn't on the project board, so I'm going to put that on right now. And then that's kind of like just in progress now, right?
Yep, that's exactly right.
All right, sweet. So that should be on the board now then. There it is, sweet. And then I think it'd be good to assign Jesse to that as well. I don't know if is he part of the Crossplane org where we can go ahead and, yes, he is. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and assign him to it. So his face should show up over on the screen.
He should be here for the second half of this call, I think, in case if there's any questions or anything for him.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, so let's skip back into releases, upcoming release stuff. So yeah, I think that's most of the stuff that's going on for 1.10 are still things that are maybe moving to 1.11. Anything else that folks want to bring up in the context of 1.10? Jesse's face is showing up now. Nice. Okay, so let's keep on moving through the agenda then. Dan, you want to go ahead and bring up the moving to a Crossplane contrib org?
Yeah, so this is the issue kind of describing it. Providers are not in scope for the Crossplane charter in terms of like making sure that like every provider is part of the CNCF Crossplane project. We do have Crossplane contrib, which is a nice place for folks to be able to get community support if they want to develop a provider, and that's where a lot of providers live today. There's also a fair amount of providers that live in other GitHub orgs and that sort of thing, but basically we wanted to make it very clear like where to find providers and kind of what their association was and that sort of thing. So we're updating to push to Crossplane contrib, all one word, on Docker Hub because they don't allow dashes or underscores or anything, and Crossplane dash contrib on the Outbound Marketplace. Outbound Marketplace is just an OCI registry with a fancier name, and most of the providers are now updated to push there as well. And if you have a provider that's not, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to assist. We have some example PRs, or I'm actually happy to do the literal work as well. And one of the reasons why we like pushing it there is some more flexibility around like rate limits and that sort of thing, as well as you get documentation and examples shown for all of your releases there automatically, and searchability across them. So definitely want to kind of give that experience that folks have kind of gotten with doc.crds.dev before, but basically way more with examples and search and that sort of thing. Want to make that kind of a more robust experience. So yeah, all of that's going on. If you have any questions, you're also welcome to reach out to me on Slack.
And so Dan, is there like a checklist of providers that are going to be updated? Like I see a few of them have been, kind of linked back to this tracking issue, but is there, a set that are still outstanding, or that we need to have done, or you're asking for help for, or anything like that?
There are a few that we have like open PRs on right now. There's also, I think it's mentioned maybe in the doc, there's a few new ones like provider Ansible. So it is a bit dynamic. We're looking to have all of them pushing to the marketplace and pushing to the right Docker Hub repo and everything like that by the end of this week. So we are pretty close, and a number of folks have contributed to that. So thanks to everyone who has. Once we have full coverage, and we're trying to link back here, but obviously there's been more than 4 that have gotten updated, and it's been by different folks. So we need to update our tracking a bit. But once they're all updated, all of the ones that we currently have right now that aren't archived or unmaintained or something like that, then we'll go ahead and close out this issue, and that will signify that everything is done.
Cool, that makes sense then.
Yeah, sorry. Also, if anyone has a provider and you're like, hey, I don't know what's happening and I need help to be able to do this, commenting on this issue is also a great option as well. And that makes it quite visible to us. And we obviously won't close it if there's someone who's asking for help there.
And then Dan, did you also comment on like kind of a transition there of, will releases still like upcoming releases, they will no longer be published to the Crossplane Docker Hub organization? Will that be like an immediate thing? We'll leave up some of those like the older releases there though for posterity, or what was the plan there?
Yeah, there was an announcement in Slack, but I probably should copy it over to this issue to make it more visible
Oh
and
yeah,
searchable.
okay.
We are going to do a hard cutover, which is potentially breaking in some respect for folks. Now we'll have all the documentation updated to point to the right location. So as long as you're consuming stuff from there, consuming stuff from docs and installing from there, you should always have the pointing to the right place for the right versions. We are going to keep all of the history of older images around. If necessary, we may switch over to sync those to Crossplane contrib as well. However, that's usually less of a problem for folks because if they're installing fresh, they're going to be going with a newer version. And if they have an old version, right, they're already pulling from the Crossplane one. So what we really don't want to do, the primary use case we're trying to avoid happen is where someone is currently pulling an image from the current org on Docker Hub, and that stops working. We definitely don't want that to be the case. So that's what we're prioritizing, preserving the behavior of.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, thanks for explaining that, Dan. And yeah, that would be very helpful to copy over your announcements channel message into this issue as a comment, so it's in a single place here with the history. So thanks for doing that, Dan. All right. So yeah, so that's a big thing affecting providers here. And then Dan is more than happy, as he said, to answer questions. What like anything else that folks wanted to bring up for providers? I feel like there was there's a provider AWS release as well that I did not write down here. So let me do that on another screen real quick. But any other provider topics that folks want to bring up? All right, so provider AWS v0.32.0 is available now as of 6 days ago. So we can check that out. And then there's also a new provider Ansible is now available as well. Dan, that's something you drove, right? That's a pretty recent addition as well.
I transferred the repo. I haven't done any of the work.
Okay.
So yeah, there's some awesome folks working on that. And that's one that's just about switched over and pushing as well. But that's a new one. Also, it seemed like we announced on Twitter, and it seemed like a lot of folks were pretty excited about that. So really nice addition there.
Yeah, very cool. Awesome. Glad to see that, and glad to see the provider ecosystem continuing to grow. Very cool, very cool. All right, well, let's keep on moving through the agenda. So as usual, I wanted to talk about some of the recent, pieces of content, videos and blog posts, etc. So Victor did a video recently that was kind of interesting of, as we are working on, a pretty highly demanded and fairly powerful feature of composition functions. Victor has a couple of interesting ideas about how to wrangle some complexity within your compositions in the intermediate term before some of the longer, bigger roadmap features and functionality are implemented. So you check out this video from Victor that goes into some of that stuff. Piotr continues to be writing really high quality, interesting, thought-provoking blogs. So there's a link there for his as well. And then a little plug for Matthias will be, if you happen to be, I didn't write where that was. Sorry about that. So in Germany, if you are in Germany, and then I think it's in Cologne specifically, Matthias will be doing an in-person presentation to the AWS user group there. So I'll just write that in there. So yeah, he would love to meet you if you're close by and want to stop by and check that out. It's couple weeks, 2 weeks from today then. So yep, that's an interesting opportunity. KubeCon is, I think, like less than 2 weeks away now. Sorry, less than 3 weeks away. So I think it's like 2.5 weeks. So it's coming up soon. And hopefully we'll get to see a lot of you folks in Detroit. I know a good chunk of you folks will be there. So we're definitely looking forward to that. We've had this link in here for a while, but all of the talks that mention Crossplane or about Crossplane are available here. So feel free to sign up for those and include those on your schedule. And then in addition, we do have a booth that's part of the CNCF's Project Pavilion area. So we'll be there the entire time. The entire time that the pavilion is open, we'll have somebody there to meet, chat, and listen to your ideas, feedback, all that sort of stuff. So it's a really good opportunity to meet with the project maintainers and have some good discussions there. So and a note on that too is that it's not something that like needs to be staffed specifically and only by official people with the CNCF. Anyone from the community, you're more than welcome to come hang out, chat with other people, answer their questions. If you're more advanced on your user journey within Crossplane, feel free to answer other people's questions as well. So it's definitely going to be a little place to hang out and see us and have discussions with the community. Okay, let's see. What's next? So I I was hoping to catch up with Alper today about the fuzz testing stuff. And I don't know if he had followed up to get some more details about the root causes there. So we'll follow up with him again asynchronously on that. Is Pete on the call today? It does not look like Pete is there. But so Pete is undergoing he talked about this last community meeting. He's undergoing a big migration of our crossplane.io website and all the documentation as well from the Jekyll framework to using Hugo instead. So all that is on PR 151 here. And so you can follow along with that. I believe that Dan has taken a full pass through that, and Pete might want to squash it as well. That's a long commit list. But yeah, I think Dan has taken a full pass through that and maybe given a lot of feedback. Dan, one thing I wanted to bring up here, though, since I know you had looked at it, is that I think there was mention of maybe some documentation authoring experience changes that were maybe temporary or, a short-term sort of thing. Do you have more insight that you can share with us on that?
Yeah. So, for kind of a long time, we've been very maintainer engineer driven on our docs, and Pete's bringing a lot of doc specific expertise. There's a few changes being made here, although it's not, the commit history here is got some rebase stuff in it, but it's not too big of a diff. But there's a couple things around like changing with links and things like that that will lead to links not rendering properly in GitHub. It's a trade-off, right? It would be really nice for those links to render properly. However, it does mean that we in Hugo, the links will actually it'll refuse to build if a link is incorrect or isn't linked correctly. And so there's kind of we're getting more build time guarantees as a trade-off to some of like the experience of maybe authoring them. Pete has added a whole doc here about authoring docs, which is going to be really helpful, I think, for contributors and things like that. But overall, we're kind of taking an approach of saying, hey, this is a much better path forward, especially since we're moving to Hugo, which is in Go, and I'm sure Pete talked about that last week. But it's overall a better place to be, but we may do some iteration here. So, folks may have to be patient with some of the updates as we go. But we're going to try and make this transition, then iterate on it quickly. Also, this is happening on Friday. And so it's possible.
Tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
It's possible that there could be, some issues we have to work through. We don't anticipate the site being down or anything like that. But just be aware, if you're giving a demo that depends on Crossplane docs, let us know. We'll try to do it in a window that is, closer to the weekend for folks. But just a heads up on that.
And so, Dan, if I understood correctly, it seems like the documentation authoring experience changes are mostly around like how we do like links, like the format for links, and so they might not render if you look at the docs, the markdown on GitHub. But you said that there is some build time like validation, linting, perhaps something like that will like confirm that links are good before you even push and get it live.
Yeah, so right now, when they get synced to the docs repo or the site repo, we'll get that warning, so that will fail when it tries to deploy there. What we're going to try to do is also bring some tooling into the Crossplane repo that says like, hey, the PR won't even pass if you have a link that's not properly, doesn't have a proper linking to whatever the actual content is. And so, yeah, there will be some probably follow-on improvements to make that an even more robust process, but we do lose some of that GitHub viewing.
Got it. Very cool though. Yeah, I like a lot of the improvements and progress that Pete has been making on the Crossplane.io website is all in pretty good service, I think. So that's fantastic. I see that Jesse joined, and so Dan, you are here for the first half, and then Jesse is here for the second half, but it looks like you all might have a few minutes of overlap. Do you want to chat real quick, or is anything that would be productive in your overlap time here about the signature validation stuff that you all have been working on?
Jesse, you're welcome to add anything. I've only mentioned that we're going to sync up tomorrow, and other folks are welcome to attend that. And that it's coming in pretty hot for 1.10, so we might not be in there.
Right.
But it's making great progress. So
yeah, no problem at all, and I appreciate the eyes. So I would just say that if anyone has the time to actually review what's going on there, it's a fairly simple PR at this point, but there are some, I think that Dan, you raised some interesting design decisions that we will go over tomorrow. In regards to the storage of keys and so on and so forth. And I think that the goal of having packages be able to be validated is already achievable with this PR. So, we can kind of choose how far we want to progress before we target a release. I don't think that there's any problem with it missing, the .10 release. So we can go into our KubeCon talk, which is part of what this is building up to, with this being, simply a PR at that point.
Awesome. Okay, that sounds good. And I definitely like the progress on this so far, Jesse. So thanks for digging in and getting this type of functionality available for the community to, be able to take advantage of as well. So this is really good stuff. And then Dan mentioned then, Jesse, that if other folks in the community wanted to join the conversation tomorrow, they could just ping him, and then they can join in and listen in, or maybe contribute some ideas.
Perfect.
As well.
That's great.
We all meet tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely. I would enjoy it.
Awesome. All right. Good stuff. Great stuff. Okay. So I think then, since we skipped ahead to this, the only other agenda item I think that was on the agenda right now, obviously, there will be time for other folks to bring up things that did not make it to the paper doc agenda. Is I did want to call out to folks that there's a Crossplane runtime feature that was added recently. that is essentially an annotation that you can add to manage resources to pause reconciliation of them. The main point for this is to help out with potentially with migration scenarios. So if you have, maybe some breaking changes in whatever provider you're building or, using either side, and you need to do a little bit of manual migration effort, it can be very useful to use this annotation on the resources so that Crossplane will stop reconciling them, stop, making changes to the resources in the cloud or wherever they may live, and kind of let you do some of the migration efforts and then unpause it when you're done. So this is something that folks have been asking for a little bit in terms of making some of the migration process easier. There's a number of things that make migrations easier now with especially the webhook framework support that Muafik had added earlier this year. But a couple of these things together will continue making upgrades, migrations, et cetera, more easy for the community. So I just wanted to call attention to that. And I believe that now, so this was in Crossplane runtime. And so then I believe, I haven't kept up with it too much, but that there's a series of PRs that is then incorporating this functionality into various providers to start taking advantage of it as well. Okay, so I think that was everything that was on the written agenda. Any topics that folks want to bring up now, or new folks that are on the call for the first time, if you want to introduce yourself, the floor is open for anything that folks want to bring up.
Well, hello, Jared. Probably you refer to me, Ike Allison.
Hey there, Ike, nice to meet you.
Likewise. Well, I just came across a comparison between Crossplane and Terraform, and I'm participating at Linux Foundation Edge at the Crino project, which is actually a forum for multiple projects across different technologies. I have a telco background, and I have some insights into 5G and 5G advanced. I'm a former Ericsson employee, and I had experience from selling of complete cellular networks end-to-end. And I have also a written approval from 3GPP, that is the standardization organizations for 3G, 4G, 5G, to actually use the official 5G logo and official 5G advanced logos on my presentations on the respective specifications. So there are some, what you're doing in Crossplane, I saw the presentation from Victor, your colleague, of what you're trying to achieve with Crossplane, across multiple APIs of multi or cloud vendors, actually, and multiple control planes. Because if well, not many have insights into 5G and not many interested into, but there is actually an involvement of several service-enabled frameworks. And there is something related to the edge with edge application server. And now they have defined clear APIs between the edge application server and the cloud application server. And in 5G, you have a network data layer where actually you can separate the application functions context from the application functions business logic, and you store them separately as a structured and unstructured data. And you can have a function that actually can act as a consumer or a producer, and you can group them. So there are certain capabilities. These functions per se, as a function, they have a meaning. But as a value, they mean zero as far as they are not related to end user services. And not many actually have these insights onto end-to-end solution when it comes to even 4G and 5G, because in the last 10 years, not many had been involved into supply and commissioning of a complete cellular network. You have many people who are, working on bits and bytes, but hardly anybody is looking from end to end. As a result of this, you don't have too many insights into end user services when it comes to quality of service, and above all, fulfilling the latency. So right now, what they're trying to fulfill or to fix in 5G is actually this interconnection between the cloud domain and actually and application server, also called mobility domain. And they're very well defined interfaces and APIs. And there is a big focus on actually shifting the APIs from the mobile network operators towards the inter-service provider, and now opening directly to the end users. So also when you look, if you look at the 5G private network specifications, there is a major change from what has been in the past. So sorry that I've been dragging this, but what I'm trying to look is, if when you're trying to look into interoperability or common API, common control plane, so that you can manage and orchestrate different cloud vendors, suppliers, because I mean, they had been running very much on the cellular network and for free. I mean, if you look anybody of the hyper cloud providers, actually over the top, they had been using this. But do you have any insights, or do you actually comply to the 5G network, to the telecom? Because 5G is very different from 2G, 3G, and 4G. So that's why I joined your meeting, just to see, because I've been participating also at the CNCF Telecom User Group, and there is, I wouldn't criticize it. I mean, that's what people have chosen to do. They are focused very much on Kubernetes. And I would personally say that they hardly have any insights into telecom. So I was just, curious, based on what you're doing, to see, do you have anything related to the other side of the coin when it comes to telecom, and telecom actually work on the APIs and service-based interfaces and service-based architecture, and actually their focus on using context and data characteristics?
Yeah, good question, Ike. And so there's in terms of the core Crossplane functionality, that those types of environments or those APIs have not been a large focus so far. I have started hearing and seeing more folks from telco companies, and like in these type of environments starting to show up more in their discussions, but it has not been a core, like a focus of the core project. So I wonder, if there's some folks to connect to on like within the Crossplane Slack community of, other folks working at telco companies, seeing like what they've been doing, like what sort of things are starting to orchestrate, how maybe some of these APIs can be potentially converged, or some commonality. I'd be super interested in that as well.
Well, I have not come across what's a little bit surprising me, is that somehow I see previously Ericsson and Nokia, they had been very proud, they're focusing on standards, they're actually promoting standards, they're contributing to developing the standards. But recently, when I looked at the publications, maybe since 1 or 2 years ago, I have not seen actually, previously they had been very open to publish all the references they had been using for all the specifications. In the last maybe 12 to 14 months, I've seen that they have not been so open. I don't know, maybe they see some competition. There is also a shift, maybe you have seen from Red Hat reports from 2021 and 2022 about the open software, the state of the enterprise, open software, and how it's being used, and the shift actually, and the difference in the business models between DevOps, software as a service, and telco's business model, software as a product. And as you already detected, and you're trying to resolve a major problem, previously telco has been very much criticized about being silos, and having some proprietary interfaces or protocols, and they've been trying to partly open run or run alliance. is actually one of the key parts. But now, interestingly, your project is actually directly focusing on, I mean, Victor has been referring in his presentation to this as a fragmentation. But there is also a project within LFM called AnuCat. I mean, right now, I mean, you have some companies that had dominance and they are, you know, leading, like Amazon and Google or Azure, and Google is trying to get in. But there is, you know, fragmentation, if I would quote, you know, Victor, but they're also silos, because very much on the management and orchestration, you have different tools or plugins, but they are very, you know, particularly targeting a specific, you know, feature or capability when it comes to management and orchestration. And I'm a little bit, I wouldn't say concerned, but worried, because the cloud community lacks major insight into a telco, these particularly specifications for 5G advanced. And they are, you know, there is a major difference what 5G is about from 2G, 3G, and 4G. It enables such capabilities and provides, you know, end-to-end quality of service and enablement of services focused on data. So I'm, you know, trying a little bit to see, hopefully, that these two worlds will merge at some point. But as it looks like now, they are not very much crossing, or they're crossing on particular points or particular cases. I don't see too much synergy. As I indicated to you, there is a specification with clearly defined interfaces between the edge application server and the cloud application server. And I was just, sorry to repeat, wondering if you were also including this as a part of the scope of your project.
Yeah, I think that you know, the main thing that I could say about that is that you know, with the architecture of Crossplane, you know, it has like core generalized functionality for orchestration, provisioning, managing, et cetera, of resources in general, and not really any specific opinionated you know, aspect of what those resources are. And then at the provider layer, you know, that's a kind of an extension point to orchestrate, manage, et cetera, lots of different types of resources. So, you know, there's a main focus of that has been on public cloud provider, hyperscaler type of resources. But then there's all sorts of other types of providers for anything with an API can be managed and orchestrated. So there may be some synergy there, but I certainly do not have, you know, domain expertise to understand exactly how those things start fitting together with, you know, in the telco domain. So maybe there is some cases there for, you know, at the provider layer for, you know, the extensions to Crossplane to be able to have the integration of resources there. But I don't have a strong or well-informed opinion at this point myself, that is.
Right. Bob sent a kind of an interesting remark. I mean, Bob, would you care actually a little bit to elaborate? Why do you expect to see, you know, particular, what shall I say, companies rather than, you know, functionalities?
I'm not saying that's company specific. But
Providers.
I mean,
Sorry.
using your example, you know, if there is a you know, if there is a what do you call it, a specification for the API for edge access or edge application access. I don't remember the exact term that you said, but it sounds like, you know, if there's an API specification for that, then someone could very easily write a Crossplane provider that implements that API interface into, you know, either a generic open source implementation of the provider of the API, or a company specific implementation of the API. You know, I would not be at all surprised to see an Open RAN Crossplane provider at some point, assuming that there are APIs for Open RAN. However, I would not expect Crossplane itself to care one way or another about what the actual application is, right? Crossplane's job is to facilitate the communication, to facilitate the modeling and the API. You know, to me, it's the modeling is the big thing, right? And the being able to combine different resources from different providers and abstract away all of that complexity into a single composite. That's the value. And then the fact that I can plug in these different providers to different APIs as I need them. So, I mean, certainly, I mean, I personally have experience in the 5G arena with Crossplane. And I will tell you that there is a lot of work going on in 5G for that. That's about the extent of what I can tell you. I can't give you any details, but yeah, I mean, the benefit to me of Crossplane is being able to have these providers that implement these APIs to Equinix, as an example, as an edge cloud provider, or AWS or anybody else. And then again, if there are higher level application APIs that can be modeled as well, then that's great. That's just one more thing to put into the API provider bucket.
Right. No, first of all, I do apologize in case that I use some terms or I express myself and I misled you, because I mean, these specifications by 3GPP, they are open and accessible by anybody, and anybody who implements that by default should be able to be interoperate with anybody else who also implemented this.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately, I've been in telco for about 35 years, and I know how well that works in practice. So,
well, I mean, as I mentioned to you, I mean, that's a little bit what's the purpose of the 5G is. I mean, they're trying with 5G or through the 5G to resolve all the problems and all the issues that they have experienced with the 2 and 3 and 4G. So, and I'm seeing that, okay, maybe on the implementation part, I definitely can agree with you. But from the specification point of view, this is what they're targeting. And there is a lot of legacy out there, which is not very easy to replace and to change. There is a lot of investment. So, but I mean, personally, as I indicated, what you're trying to do is something which is great, and it will provide, if you succeed indeed, also, to implement this with APIs on YAML that are, machine readable. I think you will definitely have a great impact, will have a huge achievement, resolve big issues, and enable also big capabilities, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ike, and that kind of gets back to like the charter of the Crossplane project, and the core functionality that is in like as a framework to enable people to build control planes. And so I can see like at the provider layer, the community taking on and rallying around some of these type of use cases and support for them to kind of plug into the greater ecosystem of other providers and built on top of the core Crossplane functionality. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in like the interest and how the community may want to rally around that. But within the core, the Crossplane project itself and its charter, that core functionality will be its main focus for as through the project's life cycle.
Right. I mean,
I can see community.
The final thing, Bob, also, and Jared, thank you so much for your comments. I just would like to share something with you that has puzzled me, is that, I mean, there is a lot of great applications and features and functionalities. And maybe it's also a little bit the background that I have, and I'm probably biased. And when I try to look, okay, how these features and functionalities and applications, for which end user services, or what kind of latency or throughput they contribute, I mean, which use cases they're connected to, then usually people have a big question mark. Because I'm also coming from technology background, and in some, I mean, also I have a training on this, when people, the trainers are going around and asking you to write the value statement, and then of course you write about feature or functionalities, and you don't see that in their head. They had a stamp, written, so what? Because I'm also very much, speaking about different features and functionalities. And sometimes, not very often, but sometimes I also can miss a little bit to connect them, how they contribute to resolve the issues in order to provide or commission, end user services. But thank you. Thank you actually for the possibility to introduce myself and, to share with you some of the ideas and interests that I have. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for bringing that kind of stuff up. And then, I think following up on Slack is potentially a good possibility as well for connecting. There's thousands of users on the Slack, and then a much smaller number here at the in-person synchronous meeting. So yeah, if you want to drop a note on the Crossplane Slack to see what other telco involved or aware people are out there, and if there's any sort of momentum maybe that can be drawn towards providers that are focusing on this area, that would be probably a good next step maybe.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jack.
Awesome. Yeah, nice to meet you, Ike.
Thank you.
All right, well, if we still got time, I'll introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm Don Mayo. I work for Oracle on their managed Kubernetes offering. Used Terraform for years, loved it, but I'm very excited by solutions like Crossplane because people can push more infrastructure into Kubernetes where it's easier to maintain and it's continuously reconciled. That's awesome. So I'm really here to just get the full experience using it because I'm pretty new to the Crossplane project and really just looking for any opportunity that I could contribute where I can.
Fantastic, Don.
This is Ram here.
Hey, Ram.
We had reached out to you, a couple of weeks back. I work with Don and a few others from Oracle have also joined. I think I sent an email a couple of weeks back about we are very positively intrigued by what you guys are doing with Crossplane. We see it's a huge opportunity. And so parallelly, we're working very closely with Rob Clark from Abound on some of the possibilities on the providers and go-to-market aspects, but specifically, we are sort of treating these two as independent paths. Like one is we want to contribute to the vision of Crossplane, and that's where Don and a bunch of other engineers from Oracle would like to join this team and contribute to the open source movement here for Crossplane. Parallelly, we are obviously working with Abound as a company as well because we see that as an opportunity. And so, as we move forward, we look forward to joining these calls, as Don mentioned, and listen and learn, and obviously contribute in the coming weeks. Appreciate the initiative here, and look forward to hearing your additional thoughts as we participate in these meetings.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much for that introduction to the community here. Definitely appreciate that, and I the sentiment as well. So I think there will be lots of opportunities for at various levels of the project too. Feedback and bugs and issues, etc. Documentation. Helping steer the roadmap in terms of what functionality is important to your use cases and how you're adopting it, and then contributions and code and features and stuff like that. We've had some fantastic contributors coming in as consumers of the project and using the project and then wanting new functionality. And Bob is immediately coming to mind on that of driving some bigger features and stuff too. So there's all sorts of levels to contribute and participate here. And so we're always happy to have new folks come aboard, and looking forward to seeing more of you all around as well.
Thank you, Jared. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Might I take some minutes as well to introduce myself?
Sure. Absolutely, Roberto.
Well, I'm Roberto. I'm an SRE at Wildlife Studios. It's a mobile gaming company, and we're building a platform now to provision infrastructure and all that's necessary for a new application to show up in the company. And we're using Crossplane to create all of that underlying infrastructure. We've had a previous project that did that with Terraform, but we found that managing Terraform files in repositories wasn't really very easy to do or even good. So we decided to go with Crossplane. We've been using it for a couple of months now, and we found some scalability issues with TerraJet. I posted an issue about it. I think maybe at some point we can take a look at that, but I don't know if that's the moment right now. But yeah, eventually we'll probably contribute as well some other providers. For example, we're working right now on a vault provider for Crossplane to be able to manage like policies, roles, and other vault things. I'd like to know as well how once we have it working a little bit as well, how can we move that to the Crossplane contrib org, and what's the stepping stones there as well.
Awesome, Roberto. That sounds really good. Yeah, there's definitely we've done that many times before, where folks have started the independent efforts on particular providers, and then they want to be able to have a neutral place with a defined governance to collaborate with other people, and so lots of different providers have been contributed to the Crossplane contrib org, and it's an easy process as well. Just a couple different options for it, to either do a transfer or to we can create a repository for you, and you essentially can create a PR with the content to seed that repository. So you can just reach out to me anytime, and I'm happy to help guide that there. And then, I'd also love to follow up on some of the scalability things you've been running into as well, because there has been a ton of work. Nick, I think, was leading some of that effort on scalability, and we put a couple of fixes into upstream Kubernetes as well. So there's a lot of progress or focus on that over the past few months. So it'd be good to see what maybe could still be lingering there.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of issues pop up here and there about how to make Crossplane more scalable, right? Because it's one thing, like Kubernetes can handle a whole lot of custom resources by themselves, like if they don't communicate with external resources. But once we add that extra latency of having to communicate with external resources, everything starts to break down a little bit.
Yeah, and are you like we can follow up offline too, Roberto, but are you all working with like a large scale of instances of resources, or is it more like the large number of CRDs of custom resource definitions of types that's causing problems for you all?
No, it's mostly the number of resources of the same kind.
Oh, interesting. Are
That's
you all
causing issues for us.
like multiple thousands or like tens of thousands, or what kind of order of magnitude are you all at?
We're going to have multiple thousands, but right now we have multiple hundreds, and it's already causing some issues.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that'll be definitely good to follow up on to get better understanding of the characteristics there.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that,
I've
Roberto.
posted some threads about it on Slack, and I opened an issue as well with more details if you are interested in taking a look at it.
Yeah, I am definitely. Cool.
But yeah, I just wanted to say hi, and I'll be as well on Detroit on the end of the month, so we can meet there.
Oh, perfect. Yep, that sounds good. Yeah, a bunch of folks from the community here will be there, so looking forward to meeting you. All right. Okay, sweet. So we're about running out of time now, but thanks folks for introducing yourselves, for bringing lots of lively discussion here together. Definitely enjoyed it. And then, yeah, I think before we meet next time, we will have the 1.10 release out, as long as it sticks to schedule, which I don't see any reason for it not to. So yeah, lots of things to follow up on here, and thanks for everybody for coming and contributing today, and it's great to see everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you for hosting this.
Take care, everybody. Bye.